Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 52 of the Lord Ninja Choke MMA Picks podcast. Today, we are going to be doing our fight focus and providing our best bets for the Emmett versus Vallejos card taking place at the UFC Apex. Personally, I'm just excited for UFC London next week to be there in person. So this card is kind of a blur for me, but yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of looking forward to getting this one out of the way. So, shall we take a look through the main card, Josh and Dom? See what we've got here. Anybody got any views off the top of their head for how they feel about this one? I mean, yeah, I don't even know what to tell you.
Looking into it just recently, it's a fairly underrated card. I mean, there are some names there that are probably not recognizable or not really household names, but when you look into the fights, they're all pretty action-packed. I mean, there are some grapple-heavy fights like the Mesquita versus Rendon fight down below. But then you see some really fascinating matchups like the Charles Johnson Bruno Silva fight, which is weird because to me, I feel like Johnson shouldn't even be fighting right now. He is maybe still waking up in the days from being knocked out by the other guy. I can't remember his name. Rahiki is a really fun fighter, but his chin is shit. So I'm wondering how rough he's gonna, be rattled against Hardwick here. But yeah, there are some fascinating matchups here. I'm really intrigued by pretty much all of them, but it's an Apex card. The smaller cage kind of makes things a bit fascinating in a sense, but overall, can't complain. What about you guys?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's some low-key, really interesting matchups. I'm still shell-shocked and recovering from 3 back-to-back underdog main event victors where I was on the wrong side. So I think for me, this kind of went under the radar a little bit. I didn't really look into this card too much until recently. Yeah, still recovering from the Charles Chimaev victory at the weekend when I was on the max side. But yeah, here there's like loads of good fights, I think, actually, that are kind of interesting. Nothing like really, really high level, but even, you've got the Battle of the Vets with Anders and Tavares. I know that's not going to be the highest level fight, but it's still interesting because at least they're both at the same point in their career, right? And then you already mentioned the Johnson Silva. I think even the Petrino Aspland will be interesting. So I think up and down. Delgado Philly, I think that's going to be a banger. Yeah, loads of good stuff to look into here. And the fights we're going to focus on specifically today are here in red. Should we go into them, or Will, do you want to comment on any of these matchups that you like outside of the red ones?
No, you guys are better sales than me. I probably won't have anything to offer here. So yeah, let's just crack on.
All right, here we go. The main event here, of course, is Emmett versus Vallejos. And for the life of me, during my tape review, during my tape study, my write-ups and whatever, I couldn't really see anything too fascinating here. I mean, this whole fight reminds me of Piera versus Emmett a lot because it's technically the same kind of fight, right? We see Emmett facing a younger fighter who uses his volume a lot, uses his boxing well, and just is fairly explosive on the feet. But Emmett is kind of like a brick shithouse that survives the cyclone, right? He walks away from fights looking like he's been through a wood chipper, but he survives those fights. And so my main intrigue here is whether or not Emmett still has it within him to land a surprising blow on Vallejos. Now, I'm by no means a someone who would pick Emmett in this scenario, but the intrigue gets to me, right? He is a veteran. He is almost a 10-year UFC veteran. So he made his debut back in 2016. And he's pretty much fought the who's who of the division since then, right? I mean, Tapuria, Rodrigues, Bryce Mitchell, that one was a pretty cool fight. I mean, we saw Mitchell get almost murdered. And so it makes you wonder, right? The power of Emmett, is it still there at 41, or is it just an existent kind of animal that, or no, hang on, non-existent animal, sorry, that used to be there but is no longer there, like the Loch Ness monster, right? The Loch Ness monster used to be a mythical beast and whatever, and people see it's there, people don't see it's there, whatever. Anyway, my point being is, Emmett being at the end of his career, does he still have that right hand power? And I don't think he does, but who the hell knows. Vallejos, he is a bit of a special case. He has only 3 fights in the UFC, and his rise has been much more quicker than my rise out of bed this morning. I feel like he can maybe not get Emmett down by punches, or knock him down or knock him out, but I reckon he can do what the other punches did in the UFC. We might see Emmett walk away looking all sorts of red and blue and bruised all over, but I just don't see a finish here. I reckon Vallejos is just one of those fighters that's going to pepper him with strikes, and maybe the ref is going to step in, sympathetically or empathetically to just call it, and that's about it. I really wish there was more to say here, but genuinely, this fight is black and white in every sense of the word. I cannot see any diversity in terms of mixing in the styles from each fighter. Maybe some wrestling from Emmett, but overall, it's just going to be a stand-up fight where Vallejos just peppers him with strikes over 5 rounds or over 3 rounds, and then finishes him in the later rounds. And that kind of leads to my main bet here, because with the odds being the way it is, I think I saw Vallejos like -500 on Tapology. Maybe you guys can update that and tell me that I'm wrong there or whatever. But either way, my main crop focus here would be a late round finish. I wasn't aware until now that combo rounds is likely a sports bet only thingamajiggy, and I use sports bet, so my main bets here are, Vallejos KO round 3, 4, or 5. And that's only there because I think Emmett can survive the first 2 rounds, and he can weather the storm and just, cover up for those for the most of the fight, right? It's really a basic fight, and unless you guys can surgically pick out details here, which I can't right now, and I couldn't before, let me know. But that's my pick, that's my bet. What do you guys think? Let's pass it on to Dom.
I was hoping you were going to go to Will, because I think he's got an interesting angle on the overs here. I do think, and speaking to you before, I don't know if you explicitly mentioned this, but you just said like maybe this line is wide. Yeah, you're right. It's -550 right now for Vallejos, and what has he done in his career to justify that price except knock out Chikadze? Because you say it's an astronomical rise. So he lost on the contender series to Jean Silva, which is aging very well because he didn't get finished. So he went to decision with Jean Silva, but then he beat Cam Teague, he beat Sungwoo Choi. Okay, that guy's chinless. And he had a decision fight with Danny Silva. So, and I don't think knocking out Chikadze at the back end of his career means much. So I'm not saying that Emmett's the side, but for sure these odds are wide, right? And yeah, now I'm thinking about this fight more and more. I am thinking the over. The fight starts round 2, round 3, maybe like you have it here on the screen that it's going to end in the later rounds, potentially could go to decision. I think Emmett's being grossly underestimated here because he's tough. He's on all the steroids, all the juice. This guy is, I know he's 41 years old, which is pretty insane for a fighter, but he's definitely got everything in his system that he can have to help him here, because he looks in phenomenal shape. I went to his Instagram. He believes he can win, and that's half the battle with these things. So I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it is binary in the sense that it's just a young slugger versus an old slugger, and the young slugger should win. But I'm not seeing an early finish here personally. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's weird that Josh Emmett has just been universally believed to be this washed old man who just doesn't throw anything. Like I guess his volume is pretty low, and he's kind of past his prime, and a lot of his all of our memories recently have just been of him getting beaten up over 25 minutes against people. But I went and rewatched the Lerone Murphy fight as I was doing research for UFC London a couple of hours ago, and Emmett's very competent in that fight. Like he was walking forward, doing all the output and all of the sort of forward pressure in that fight. I mean, that's kind of on Lerone, but that's besides the point. The thing I've always felt with Josh Emmett, and I started thinking this way when he fought Ilia Topuria. Josh Emmett is a unique fighter in that he brings out a certain amount of like timidity in his opponents, because I personally think that he is on the pound for pound list of like heaviest hitters in UFC history, like obviously on a pound for pound sense. So like not just thinking about heavyweights. If the man was a heavyweight, he'd be worse than Derek Lewis at like putting people to sleep. But I think that kind of results in him looking really good without having to do too much, because whenever he flurries on an opponent, they shit themselves. Like Lerone Murphy looked hurt by everything that hit him, and it wasn't that he was hurt; it's just that he started shelling up. He leaned up against the fence. Just people really respect Josh Emmett's power, and he doesn't put together a 25-minute or even like a minute-winning kind of performance. He's very much like he fights in bursts, but those bursts are good and they are worth something. But I do think he should be expected to lose a fight over a longer distance, and I do think that Vallejos probably is head and shoulders better from a minute-winning perspective. But this kind of money line, I think it's even worse. I think it's like minus 700 now. You that kind of makes it look like Vallejos should have light work here, and I don't think that's the case. I think Emmett can definitely win a round or two just off of like sheer enthusiasm and swinging with enthusiasm. So I think the angle here, well, I haven't actually looked at the lines that much for it, but I was most keen on thinking about Vallejos and the fight going longer, possibly Vallejos decision, just because Emmett is not somebody that you can confidently like build aggression against. Like you're going to pot shot against him. You're going to be in and out. You're going to be very aware that the only way this guy beats you is if he detonates that right hand on your face. So like don't let that happen, and therefore just take it easy. And it's kind of what Ilia Topuria did. Topuria wasn't as aggressive as he usually is. I know he knocked him down twice, I think, but yeah, that was my lean going into that fight. Lerone Murphy was exactly the same. I mean, Murphy's kind of, as I say, not the most forward pressuring kind of guy anyway. But yeah, I just think that like you'd be a fool to go rock'em sock'em robots against Josh Emmett, wouldn't you? So why do that? And Vallejos has so much on his side in terms of volume, athleticism, youth, speed. Therefore, so just play it safe, man. Cruise yourself to a decision. Get your first 25-minute fight under your belt, and then onwards to the next challenge in the rankings. So yeah, I think Vallejos and some sort of over, possibly the distance, possibly a decision. But yeah, the late KOs they make sense. I just think we're going to go halfway at least, probably further than that, and Vallejos will be winning.
It's just a bit of odds here. I can see the over 2.5 sitting at minus 160, which seems quite nice. And then I can see fights start round 4 at like minus 140. So yeah, I think maybe the odds makers actually have kind of factored in that what you said, like Vallejos doesn't need to go hell for leather here, and he doesn't need to get Emmett out of there early, and nor should he because of the threat. So I'm intrigued still by that. I still think there's potential value there. What do you guys think about the over 2.5? The over 3.5 is even money. So there you've got the over 2.5. Just do it in decimal. It's easier. So 1.6 for over 2.5. Fight starts round 4 is 1.7. And then over 3.5 is even money, like 2 basically.
I think in any fight where Josh Emmett is involved, his opponents already have that natural, as Will said, like that timidity when it comes to fighting him, because they don't want to get caught by the right hand, because their right hand's notorious. In Vallejos' case, he's only 24. He may be a bit cocky early on, maybe, but I think he has the intelligence, the drilling, the preparation in him to just pace himself accordingly. Maybe lure Emmett out for a strike and then counter effectively early on, waste Emmett's gas tank by making Emmett strike early on and miss. But yeah, I really think that the overs are the way to go here. Like anything past like the third round, personally, I think is great.
What about you, Will? Which of the overs do you think? Where do you think sort of the value lies?
It's tricky, really. Like, I personally always like to kind of have like a ladder play where I'll put like the majority of my stake on the one that's even money, and then sprinkle a smaller amount of my remaining budget, I suppose, on the further quantities. I mean, the fight goes the distance is like plus 170, and if you fully agree with what I've been saying about it, Vallejos decision is plus 220, so 3.2. I guess you could use that as well. So yeah, I personally, I feel like if it goes longer, the chances of a finish gets lesser, doesn't it? So yeah, I think if you're going to go half the way, you might as well go all the way. But obviously, securing the profit halfway would be the smart choice. So yeah, I think 2.5 probably is the way to go if it's even money.
Yeah, I need to think about it a little bit, just because I think you could also do the single game parlay, which isn't available yet, but you could do Vallejos and over 2.5 rounds. But you could cover yourself with a like Josh Emmett decision, no action, just in case that, you know, we've had 3 dog winners in a row in main events. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that we get an Emmett win at the weekend. I mean, I would love that as well. Personally, I'd love to see Emmett win as a man in the UFC who's older than me. That would be fantastic. But yeah, I'm not holding my breath for that. So yeah, maybe like you say, put most of your stock into. I think Vallejos over 2.5 rounds will be close to even money. But you know, even if you don't choose a fighter, then over 2.5 rounds still seems appealing to me. Should we move on?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, we have a collaborative breakdown here. We're all going to break down the Lemos Robertson fight, and the reason we can do this is because this is a rematch from October last year, I think. These two were supposed to be fighting, and Lemos took the fight at short notice and then pulled out. So yeah, do either of you have something to say on this, given that it should be kind of something we have broken down prior?
I do, but I want to start off with a question for you guys because I am drawing blanks right now. Was the original fight? I think it was with the on. Sorry, I think it was on the Cup Royval event. Was that event in the Apex or was it in a full arena? Do you guys know?
I believe it was Apex.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that kind of ruins my argument about, the cage is smaller than what they were preparing for now, so well, stuff that. Look, Robertson is a gritty fighter. Like, I mean, we're gonna repeat that kind of like word usage during this breakdown, I'm sure, but like, I think she can bring Lemos to the cage, just hold on to her with not all of her life really, because you didn't really need that against Lemos, and use her finesse grappling to wear her down. I mean, she works out of the goat shed. Dean Thomas is her coach. Dean Thomas is a incredibly good grappler when it comes to grappling, of course, but also he's a good grappling coach. And I feel like the synergy between her and Dean Thomas is going to pull off massively here. Like, I think she's just going to systematically break down Lemos here. And I'm sounding like Gillian Robertson has a gun to my head. She doesn't. She's not. She's nowhere near me. But I can't see anything positive out of Amanda Lemos. I mean, we were talking about Lemos earlier, or at least Dom and Will were, regarding Lemos's punching power and the threat that she could potentially have against Robertson. And whilst punching power is a fairly definitive thing in the UFC or any MMA organization, I also think that with punching power comes the need for the opponent to punch with her, right? It takes two to tango, and I don't think Robertson is a type to lure Lemos out or make her strike against Robertson, right? It's going to be a very one-dimensional fight. It's going to be a grappler versus a striker, ultimately. Lemos is going to maybe grapple. Maybe she's going to defensively grapple by bringing up a guillotine, or if she's off her back, maybe an arm triangle or whatever. But Robertson's a top tier grappler. She is one of the best grapplers in the UFC, in my opinion. Like, I mean, I know that's going to upset some Mackenzie Dern fans out there, but who cares? I reckon she's an OG in this case, and I think she's going to be all over the submission attempts from Lemos. If that does happen, it's just going to be all Robertson here. Yeah, I'm pretty much ranting. Anyone want to take over from this uncle that's ranting on about this fight?
There's a lot of bases to cover, isn't there? It is a pure striker versus grappler, and Lemos has a ridiculously detailed history of fighting against grapplers. So there's a lot of like nuance to go through if you've done the tape and everything. So yeah, for me, it's I've had a good time in engaging in these Amanda Lemos striking versus grappler fights. She very much seems to me somebody who knows that she's probably KO or bust in these grappling fights, because her takedown defense and her get-ups especially are just not there. In the fight against Yasmin Lucindo, she was 2 rounds up, which, you know, fair play to her, and maybe it changed the course of the fight and her decision making, but she really typified her approach to grappling in that 3rd round. She got taken down and she just thought, well, if I just stay safe, if I don't do anything ridiculous or risky, the clock is going to tick down. And in that instance, yes, it would have meant that she won the fight. But in other instances, you'll see her do the exact same thing, because when that round ends and she stands up and goes back to her corner, she starts the next round in her realm, and she gets another bite of the cherry to try and land that KO in the idea that she's KO or bust. So I kind of think really more so this is a fight to question whether or not Robertson gets a finish, because I just don't. I do respect Lemos's power, and I do think she's a very decent striker. She's one of the best strikers in this weight class, but it's kind of washed up a little bit. Robertson's also not as frail and defensively irresponsible as she used to be back in the day. She's passed this test before a couple of times, and she knows what she needs to do, and she's very likely to do it. And I just think that she gets 1 takedown or 2 takedowns, and you'll just see Lemos, just the morale goes, and the decision making becomes more about staying safe and then thinking about the next round, as opposed to fighting in the moment and actually trying to you know, get that scramble, get that release, that sort of break that she can use to pounce back to her feet. Because against Robertson, that's the worst thing you can do, is really just like fight relentlessly to get back to your feet, because she'll take the opportunity, she'll take the back, and then she'll choke you out. So I don't blame Lemos for that at all. But I've been somebody who's bet on Gillian Robertson to win by finish almost every single time. The second breakdown I ever wrote was her against Sarah Frota, where I bet her to win by knockout at like plus 1400. There's a little history lesson for you. But on this occasion, I think Lemos is going to underwhelm us in terms of bringing a Robertson finish. So for me, it's Gillian Robertson and overs, or Gillian Robertson by decision, maybe. I just think that Lemos is going to really shut the fight down and stop Gillian from doing anything except holding top control. How about you, Dom? Do you have a contrarian take here? Do you like the finish, or are you on the dog?
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to me. I don't have a contrarian take, but I have I'm pretty sold here on Gillian Robertson, and I was just looking at their records, and you know, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think it's interesting. You know, Gillian Robertson is 30 years old, and she's had 19 UFC fights. She's 13-6 in the UFC, and Amanda Lemos she's going to be 39 in May. So I mean, we're in March, so she's pretty much 39 years old, and she's had less UFC fights than Gillian Robertson. She's had 14, so she's 9-5. And if you look at the way that these girls are finishing, and if they're winning, the way they're winning and losing, Gillian Robertson is basically 4 decision losses and then two finishes, but she's never been finished. No finish losses at this current weight class that she's in. So yeah, I just see it as like you say, it's a question of can Gillian finish Lemos or not. And for me, and we discussed this before we came on, I think that she can finish, and if she doesn't, I think it's a dominant performance, and that's what you capture with the points handicap. So Robertson minus 3.5 points is currently plus money. Inside the distance is plus 205, and the points handicap is plus 145. I personally think the money line is also playable. Anything up to minus 200. I don't know how you guys feel about that, because that would just take out the uncertainty of can she finish or not. But I don't see a world in which Lemos will look good here unless she catches Gillian Robertson on the feet early and sets a precedent. But I think that Gillian Robertson is going to get Lemos down in the first round, and as you say, I think that Lemos will slowly break over the 3 rounds. Yeah, do you guys like the money line here, or do you prefer to play a prop?
I mean, personally, given Robertson's history with like finishing opponents, I feel like a submission is going to be, available to her at all times whenever she's going to be grappling against Lemos. And maybe I'm blind, or maybe I have a forgetful memory, but isn't Lemos quite, as Dom says, gassy? Like I feel like after the first half of the fight, she's probably gonna be exhausted by all this grappling, and maybe we'll see a round 2 or round 3 finish somewhere, maybe.
So I don't know if Will can answer that, but we have seen her in extended grappling being held down. So she was held down by, who was she held down by?
I know she was held down by like Weili Zhang for like the whole fight, I believe.
Yeah.
So
She's held down by a striker, yeah, in Zhang.
I think Suarez had it down a fair bit. She actually was a bit more competitive than usual in that one, but Suarez is not the Suarez we know anymore. Amanda Lemos she did used to have cardio issues, but it's been a long time since we've seen it, I think. Reeling off her Tapology record, it kind of says that she doesn't. But yeah, in her early first few UFC fights, people were definitely suspicious of the cardio. So I'm not super confident, but I think she'll be okay.
Okay, should we move on?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, we are moving on to what should be an absolute banger here. We've got Bolaji Oki coming back after a devastating loss to Mason Jones, taking on Manoel Sousa, who is a debutant in the UFC, coming off a comeback victory on Dana White's Contender Series. So I just thought I'd break this one down because I was intrigued by the odds initially. The opening odds are long gone, but Bolaji Oki opened up at something like plus 370, so like 4.7. And Manuel Sousa was a huge favorite, like 1.25, like minus 400 favorite. Since then, the lines have kind of come crashing down much closer. So currently, there's been a bit of buyback on Sousa, interestingly, but Oki's sitting around plus 200 on most books, like plus 220, plus 200, and Manuel Sousa can be found for minus 270. Actually, I found an interesting thing here is that I didn't realize this. Sousa was actually opened up at minus 200 and obviously took a lot of betting early on. That's what swung him, I see. So when the lines open, if a big amount of money comes in, it doesn't take much to move it. So he went from minus 200 to that number I mentioned to he moved to minus 465. And ever since opening day, people have been betting on Oki largely to the point that now Sousa is minus 270, around the 1.3 something range. So yeah, I find this really interesting because I can understand why people are like would want to fade Oki here, because his last performance was disappointing to say the least. He was a dog to Mason Jones, and he started the fight really well. He landed a nasty combination on Jones, dropped him, and he went in for the kill and followed up and almost, I think he dropped him again, almost finished Mason Jones, who was basically out on his feet. But the unfinishable Mason Jones survived. He rallied. And actually, in the first round, it was probably one of these amazing rounds of the year. He actually hurt Oki. He didn't drop him, but wobbled him at the end of the first round. And then in the second round, took over. And I've rewatched this fight a couple of times now. It's very entertaining. And the reason I rewatched it is because I was, I heard this narrative about Oki's gas tank being poor. And I didn't really see that. In round 2, I saw Mason Jones took over. He executed an excellent judo trip, got Oki to the mat, quickly transitioned to full mount. And Oki couldn't get out of full mount. He was taking elbow upon elbow upon elbow. That isn't gassing. That's just unfortunately getting outclassed by Mason Jones. So I'm not sold that he has a bad gas tank. I'm more sold on the fact that I don't think his fight IQ is very good because he's put his head in a guillotine from Chris Duncan. Again, promising signs with Chris Duncan. He wobbled and hurt Chris Duncan very early in that fight, shot a takedown. And actually, he did the same thing against Mason Jones. He shot a takedown before Mason Jones was trying to take him down. So that's the fight IQ I'm talking about. Bolaji Oki shooting on lethal submission grapplers. It's just a weird look for me. If I put up here what I think to be the pros and cons of each side, I'll start on the right because I've been talking about Oki for a bit. So Manuel Sousa, like I said, he's new to the UFC. In his history, he has a KO win over Mauricio Ruffi, which is a good thing because that's aged pretty well. Ruffi is now like at the top of the division. He's got pretty good ring craft and he's powerful. But so what I mean by that is he doesn't just rush in. He's not like, he looks like a brawler, but he's not like completely a brawler. Although I would describe him as kind of like semi-brawly in the way he approaches fights. He's very keen to use his hands. He doesn't kick much. He's like very, very big for lightweight. He's very, very muscled for lightweight. He finished 10 of his first 11 opponents inside 2 rounds. Now, some of them obviously weren't great in terms of quality because he was fighting in Brazil. But recently, he hasn't been finishing so many people. So, he lost recently in Bellator to Archie Colgan. Archie Colgan is a wrestler, American wrestler. That fight was interesting. So, Manuel Sousa was a bit standoffish, didn't throw much. Got taken down in every round and lost a decision 29-28. And he had his hands low in that fight a lot. So he did get caught by Colgan occasionally. Also, in his Dana White's Contender Series fight, I actually bet on Christian Perez, who was a Mexican fighter. And Christian Perez took him down and just held him down for the first 2 rounds, like completely dominated him on the mat and completely gassed out. Like Christian Perez was 25 years old at the time of that fight. Clearly, he wasn't best conditioned because he hadn't fought in MMA for 2 years. So despite dominating Manuel Sousa on the mat, he gassed out completely. It was, people are very excited about the Dana White Contender Series comeback, but they forget the context that he's fighting a young fighter who hadn't fought MMA in 2 years. He had a karate combat fight before that. And yeah, it was a good finish. He has heavy hands, so this guy's dangerous. But the way I see this is that these guys are quite like mirror imagey in the sense they're both super powerful boxers. So I think we could be having a kind of car crash type fight here. But Oki currently sitting at like plus, you can still find him at like plus 250. He's got the UFC experience. He also has good hands. It's a bit worrying about his hit and miss performances in the UFC and his questionable fight IQ. And I put here his Europe base because obviously, he's Belgian. He's Belgian, so he's fighting in Belgium. But that didn't stop anyone betting on Lozene Keita. He's also Belgian. So, and they trained together, by the way, Oki and Keita. So I just think potentially Oki's I think he is being undervalued here in this spot. And that's because Manuel Sousa's tape looks very convincing. I do think he's a great prospect. I probably think that Sousa should be a favorite, but I think this could play out much closer than the odds indicate. And therefore, I will be playing the Oki money line. It's not my most confident read, but I'm pretty confident in the value. And yeah, I'll hand over to Will and Josh for any final comments.
I'll let you go first, Will.
Oh, mate, I wanted to let you go first. I have absolutely nothing to say about Manuel Sousa. I haven't taped him. I've never seen him fight, so I'm not even going to bother. Bolaji Oki is someone that I am suspicious of. He seems like he is quite, explosive. He does have fast hands. When he's the hammer, looks great, but yeah, like you said, like you touched on in that breakdown, like very hit and miss. The fight IQ is a bit weird. It's just very much like it's just untrustworthy. So it's tricky when you have a guy who you respect the power of and the ability of, so you don't want to fade them, but you also don't respect their fight IQ and their like competence, so you don't want to back them. So yeah, so I wasn't getting involved in this fight from the get go, so I didn't really look into it. So yeah, Josh, take it away. What have you got?
So you guys know how fighters like RoboCop looks when he fights. You know, Gregory Rodrigues. He's very stiff and very plywood walky, right? Like he kind of like has no fluidity with his movements. You know, he doesn't really have a good defense. I kind of see Oki looking like that all the time, right? He has the power, he has the striking techniques to kind of do well, but whenever you see him fight, he doesn't really move like a fighter should. I've always seen him as like a very robotic person, and you know there is that narrative about Oki's gas tank and how he looks cardio wise. I don't really believe that too much. I think that's just his body language, right? There are some fighters that look atrocious, but they can fight fine. I mean, oh God, what's his name? The big black bodybuilder dude from back in the day. I forgot his name. It's not Manyfield, but
Knight.
yeah,
William
him.
Knight.
Yeah,
Well,
like yeah. It reminds me of that, right? Like William Knight had that bodybuilding shape, but he didn't really fatigue a lot. He looked like he did, but he didn't. Like in each round, he fought fine. In Oki's face, I do. God damn it! In Oki's place, not his face. I do think that he can look the same way sometimes. I mean, as Dom said, you know, hit and miss performances, questionable fight IQ, all of that just tells me that his body composture, his like or composition, whatever, his posture in total, just it's not very good for this kind of competition. Like, I mean, we are going to see Oki do fine early on in his career, but as he goes on, as he faces a tougher competition, I didn't see him doing too well. As for Sousa, I've only watched his Contender Series fight, and it was fine. I mean, he got wrestled for like 2 rounds and then won in the third. That's whatever. But I just don't know how he's gonna fight this time, because I mean, Oki has the punching power. Maybe Sousa can, you know, match that fierceness on the feet. But in any fight where a fighter like Oki has the punching power, you know, in his pocket, I do think it's fair to say that the dog has a chance here. And I mean, I'm not going to be backing the Oki money line bet here too much, but I do think that there is potential for an upset here, but it's a very slight chance, you know. But yeah, I don't know why Dom has the negative on the Europe-based Belgium. Like, what the fuck did Belgium do to you, man? Like, come on. Like, could you expand on that? Like, I know that, you know.
Well, I did say Cater's based in Belgium as well. No, I just meant like in terms of training partners and history in MMA, like you're going up against a Brazilian. I meant more, usually when I do these boxes on the left and right, I'm usually trying to find differences between the two fighters specifically. Like if he was fighting Mason Jones, then I think it's irrelevant, right? But, you know, Brazil has a lot of MMA gyms, has a lot of talent. So I'm just saying Manoel Sousa is probably training with high-level fighters. I know Bolaji, actually, since you mentioned it, Bolaji did go to Vegas 2 weeks early and was training out of, escaped my memory now, but the Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis gym. Do you guys know which one that is?
Isn't that Extreme Couture?
Yes, Couture. Yeah, he's been training at Extreme Couture. Now, I mean, he didn't really do his camp there, right? 2 weeks, you know, or even finishing your camp there. Okay, so he's done a few sessions there, but yeah, I just think for European fighters, like, you know, someone like Ian Gary, right? I think if you travel the world and you go to other gyms, I think that's a really good look for me personally. Like, I think, you know, it shows growth. It shows the appetite to learn. Look, you can definitely stay in your country and do well. Like Leon Edwards showed that, but also he's showing the back end of that now, which is that he didn't evolve enough. And I think specifically on the wrestling side, look here, I put as a positive, can mix in grappling, right? That's because he can grapple. There's grappling in his fights. He has taken fighters down and gone on top. But do you know what? Manoel Sousa is Brazilian, and like he's not a grappler type fighter because he likes to strike, but he can grapple. So his grappling is probably higher level than Oki's. So I was a little bit tenuous putting in the grappling thing here. It's a definite path to victory for Oki if he was a better grappler. If this person on the left was not Oki but a grappler, I would 100% be backing them like a lot heavier at plus 250, just because that's how Manoel Sousa's lost his one fight, and also was outclassed in his Dana White's Contender Series fight. He was outclassed for 2 rounds. You just watch the fight. It wasn't like particularly close. So it's a big red flag on Sousa that he can be held down. But yeah, I don't think Oki has the grappling chops to do that necessarily. Like you say, I think this plays out on its feet, and Sousa is pretty lethal on the feet. Should we move on?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it. Oh man, it makes me laugh every time I see that I do this because no one wants to hear this, so I'll keep it short and sweet. The first fight of the night, the curtain jerker, is Piera Rodrigues versus Sam Hughes, and this is the fight I've chosen to talk about because I hate my life and I hate you. Apparently, it's a rematch. It's a rematch of a fight that took place a couple of years ago. It was very close. It was won by Piera Rodrigues, and honestly, like, both women have gone a little bit better, but I think their improvements that they've both made really cancels each other out. So we should expect to see a very similar rendition to what we saw. And that fight was very much Sam was inferior in round 1, as she very often is. Piera was looking the better. Piera probably won round 2 as well. But then in round 3, Sam Hughes pulled it on. A typical Sam Hughes kind of fight where she makes up for her C-grade ability by having very good cardio and therefore pushing a pace that her opponents can't match, because her C-grade ability in round 3 is better than the D-grade ability of her opponents in round 3, if that makes sense. But Piera Rodrigues showed that she has the cardio and the ability to match that level in round 3. Maybe not quite match it, but survive, not get overwhelmed too much and keep it competitive. I think you could argue that Piera won all 3 of those rounds. I don't personally think so, but like, it was close enough that could be the case. So when it comes to rematches, no 2 fights are the same. Fighters have 15 minutes worth of footage of them fighting this person already. They now know what it feels like to be in the cage against them. What evolutionary improvements can they make to turn this one in their favor? And thinking about that was kind of the challenge for this one. And if I'm honest, I struggled to see what Sam Hughes can do, because she was marching forward a little bit, but every time she did, she was just faced with a Piera Rodrigues takedown. And Piera landed, I think, 5 takedowns on her in total, and Hughes's takedown defense was not there. Maybe it's improved. I don't really think it has, but Piera seems to have a get out of jail free card with the takedown if she wants to. Now, to her credit, Sam Hughes did get back to her feet every time, and Piera did little to nothing with the takedowns. But it's quite clear that there was a difference in physicality, and Piera was much stronger, because after the takedown and the get up, they ended up in the clinch, and it was in the clinch that the fight was won for Piera Rodrigues. She was in any realm where one woman was more dominant than the other, it was Piera in the clinch. So if you think about it, going back to that cardio narrative and how Sam Hughes' biggest weapon and her only real weapon, let's be perfectly honest, is her cardio across 15 minutes. Piera Rodrigues landed 5 pointless takedowns and still competed against Sam Hughes. So if she's done the tape, she should identify that the takedowns didn't work, waste of time, waste of energy. But the clinch was perfect, and the clinch was really working for her. So I know I'm making a massive assumption here and thinking that a women's MMA low-level curtain jerker has the ability to be this high IQ genius 1000 IQ play, but hopefully it will be. If that is the case, then I think that Piera can honestly, like, borderline dominate this fight if she uses the clinch exclusively, because she can pin Sam Hughes up against the cage for a very long time and just go off on her with the knees and the elbows, and Sam Hughes had nothing in response. So in summary, It was a very close fight the first time around, but when you consider that Piera spent most of the time sapping her own cardio, chasing an avenue that amounted to nothing, and she still won, when Sam Hughes kept the fight standing and had a fair amount of time on the feet, and she still lost. So I struggle to see what Sam Hughes can do to really elevate her game and put her stamp on this fight. Whereas I think Piera Rodrigues can make a few short adjustments and turn this one into a much more competent display. So fingers crossed we see some fight IQ, because I swear to God, if Piera just dumps 10 takedowns and does nothing with them and loses a questionable decision, I'm going to be fuming. But yeah, that is my genius play on this dumpster fire of a fight. And now the curse is over to the two of you. You guys have to talk about this. So don't all jump at once. Which one wants to go first? Tell me about Piera Rodrigues and Sam Hughes.
All right. Unless you want to go first, Dom. Like I saw you unmute.
Go ahead.
All right. I'll make it quick. I'm going to put my fellow Tapology users on blast. So currently, those who use Tapology can probably see that 74% of you have picked Hughes, and I believe that you have to be at least somewhat clinically insane to do that. In every single bit of tape that I watched on Rodrigues and on Hughes, I have landed on the final point being that Rodrigues is going to breeze through Hughes. And I know that I use strong terminology there and all that crap, but honestly, when you watch Rodrigues' like last few fights, she looked like a dog fighting over a bone. Like it was insane. You know, when she fought Sousa in the clinch, she used knees and elbows like a motherfucker. And in any other fight, she has gone from takedown to takedown to takedown, which can be good, but also it does raise a few concerns. Right, I want to be a bit fair here. Rodrigues has the ability to wrestle. She can wrestle in high volume, but she also can't keep her food down. I mean, when I say food, I mean her opponents here, because boy, she is hungry for a finish, but she can't control her opponents. It's incredible to see someone who can wrestle offensively well, but not utilize that top pressure well. And in this particular fight, I don't think she's going to struggle too much, but if Hughes does employ the typical, knee shield, get up game, all that stuff, it's going to be a closer fight. And whilst I did the tape and whilst I did, kind of shove Sam Page aside, I do think that it could be close depending on how Rodrigues fights. I mean, Will said something about a fight IQ or Rodrigues' fight IQ, and that's true. She is a blockhead, but she is also a blockhead that wrestles well and clinch strikes exceptionally well. And I'm going to harp on about the clinch striking throughout this whole week. Like, if you see me on Twitter talking about clinch striking, it's going to be about Rodrigues here. Like, that's she's great in that position. And that's my rant. What about you, Dom?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't put up the bets here, Will. I don't know if you had a chance to talk through your bets before I say anything.
No, I mean it's pretty cut and dry. Yes, Rodrigues likes to go for a finish, but Sam Hughes is very tough, and also I don't think Rodrigues has anything particularly dangerous to offer herself. So I very much see this one going the distance. I think Rodrigues is going to be better. Rodrigues by decision is therefore the conclusion.
Yes, I don't have a lot to add here. I think it's a close fight. I think you referenced the first time they fought. That's a nice thing that we have this first rendition of the fight. And you say fights don't play out the same. Of course, it won't play out exactly the same. But I don't think either fighter has changed massively or shown us lots of new looks. So I think there's a good chance that the fight is again pretty close. So the first fight was a 29-28. I rewatched the fight, and I can see why Piera Rodrigues got the nod. Definitely the round two, as you mentioned, with the takedowns, and she had a little bit of control time in the round two, was the most sort of dominant round for Piera Rodrigues. But rounds 1 and 3, because I heard this narrative again playing out that round 1 was Piera and round 3 was Sam, didn't it didn't at all feel like that. I mean, I wouldn't even say that round 3 was massively Sam. I thought Piera did well in round 3, but then I wouldn't say that round 1 was all Piera, because I thought Sam Hughes did well in round 1. So I thought round 1 and 3 were the close rounds. But yeah, round 2, I think Piera put her stamp on it with the takedowns, and I think her clinch work is better. I think she has more power and better clinch work. And what I would give to Sam, I know, it's not a great thing to give someone, is grit and determination, but no, the forward pressure. She was the one pressuring the whole fight. So I watched it and I was surprised that there was very little initiation of action from Piera. Now that's because Sam's walking forward, so it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation. But of course, that does affect the judging. That's something to be aware of, that Sam Hughes was pressuring the whole time. It speaks to Sam's cardio, I think, because you can just look at the body type as well. Yes, it's like you sacrifice the power, but you get a little bit more endurance and cardio on the Sam Hughes side. It's borne out in the stats. Interestingly, though, in the first fight, Piera did outstrike Sam Hughes 83 to 69. But I think if you look at the totality of all of their body of work, and that they both have a decent number of fights in the UFC, Sam Hughes is averaging more strikes per minute than Piera. So all this to say, I would give the edge to Piera in this fight, but I don't think it's like a massive edge. I think she's just a little bit better in certain departments that I think judges do respect. However, I think there are areas that Sam could improve in this fight. For instance, in the first fight, as I mentioned, round 1 was close. Sam Hughes looked very tentative, and I think she was wary of Rodrigues's power. But now she's felt that. If I'm Sam Hughes or her coaching team, I'd say, you felt her power. She's not going to start you in round 1. You need to get after her straight away. As soon as the bell starts, chase her down, land, punches in bunches, because that's your path to victory. You need to tire her out. She wasn't really tired out in their first fight. And I think it's because she kind of got the round 1 off. We've seen Piera kind of slow down, even in her last fight, split decision against Sousa. She definitely, her final round was her worst round, which she dropped on the judges' scorecards. So, I think it just goes with her build. She's stockier, she's got bigger muscles. So I think Sam has to play the cardio game here. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But I do give the edge to Piera. I think it's if I have to put percentage on it, I think it's close though. I think it's 55, 60, 65%, that kind of range. I was surprised actually, Josh, when you mentioned the topology. I do think that's remarkable that 75% of topology voters think that Sam Hughes is going to win, because I think she should be the underdog. And I think some people, if they were playing her at plus 200 or plus 170, I kind of get it. She is the perennial underdog, but she has all these attributes which make you, even if you lose your bet on Sam Hughes, you feel like, oh, okay, she fought hard for the money. I also agree with the bets here about the goes the distance. And if you don't like either of these girls' money lines, I think you can play either of them by decision. So if you like Sam Hughes, you can play it by decision. If you like Rodrigues, you can play it by decision. And I think go the distance is also probably juiced, but a good bet. I just want to give you guys another chance to if I missed anything or picked up on anything you wanted to respond to.
No, I think we covered everything personally. Will, did you want anything else to say? Or
No, I'm good. Should slide over to the bets, I guess.
Yeah, in the interest of time, we're gonna put up our bets on screen, not go through every single one. Both Josh and Will are active on Reddit. They put their bets on Reddit. I put my bets on betmma.tips. So we'll put the links to those in the description of the video if you want to see if we add any other bets between now and fight night. And I think that's all to say, unless guys, you have anything you want to wrap up on?
No, I just hope the viewers have a great weekend and don't lose money.
Yeah, enjoy Piera Rodrigues versus Sam Hughes. It's going to be a banger. You heard it here first.